views, I went out to the Sands Hotel and I parked my little Mercedes, and I got out of the car and I sat on the front hood of the car. And I was looking at the land that I had bought. And then an idea came into my mind, an image. And I said to myself, well, suppose that what you see with your eyes is not what your brain tells you should be there. Suppose you saw Polynesia, South Pacific. Wouldn't that make people say, could the inside of this place be as cool as the outside? And that would provoke them to go in, and that's how the volcano and the Mirage notion came.
I wanted to see if this was going to be nicer than the Taj Mahal, the Donald Trump's building, and I really think that it is.
Around for Las Vegas. For the future, this is just a stepping stone right here for this hotel to do what is done for the Las Vegas Strip.
Finally, just before noon on November 22nd, 1989,
Steve Wynn stepped out of his hotel, got on a radio like this one, and said, "Security, this is Mr. Wynn, let him in."
Breaking news today in Las Vegas, MGM Grand Incorporated has agreed to buy Mirage Resorts. That means Steve Wynn will no longer have a role with the hotel he built from the ground up, one that changed Las Vegas forever. I think it's pretty safe to say that the Mirage's best days are behind it. Look, this was once an iconic property here in Las Vegas, but at this point it needs almost a complete overhaul.
The Strip continues to evolve. MGM Resorts announcing it's selling the Mirage to Hard Rock International for $1 billion.
The Las Vegas skyline will look a little different with that giant guitar.
It has been an icon of the Vegas Strip for 3 decades, but new development has it in its crosshairs. And of course, we're talking about the volcano at the Mirage.
We will completely gut the casino. We will be able to see concrete on the ground and concrete above us. We will completely rebuild it, every single restaurant, every inch of all the public areas.
Oh, no.
I'm really glad we're here to see it.
At the end of the day, I look at it not as much as we're losing the Mirage, but we're gaining something new. It's going to be much bigger and better than it was before.
is this it?
Welcome to the fabulous Mirage.
Now, I've said those words almost every single time I walk through the doors of the Mirage in my entire life, but soon we won't be able to say that any longer. That's because, as you might have heard, the Mirage is going away. But what does that even mean, and why does everybody care so much? In this video, we're going to talk about the Mirage from start to finish, how it came to be, why it was so influential in the first place, and perhaps most importantly, where it goes from here. Now, you might have noticed this video is a little bit long, so to help you out, I put these handy dandy bookmarks down here in the timeline. If all you care about is what happens to the Mirage next and you want to know what the future holds for it, go somewhere over here on the timeline. If you want to know about the history of the Mirage, stay right where you're at. And if you just can't get enough of all things Las Vegas, just watch the entire video. But no matter what you do, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also leave us a comment down below. Tell us about your favorite Mirage memory. Tell us what you think about the Mirage becoming the Hard Rock. Leave your comments below. We always love responding to those. But now, let's talk about the Mirage. So to fully understand the importance of the Mirage, you have to know two things. Number one, who built it? And number two, what was Vegas like at the time that he built it? Because the two things are very important to the story. Of course, number one, who built the Mirage was Steve Wynn. Now, of course, in this day and age, unfortunately, what most of us know about Steve Wynn are his current misgivings. The way he was, dumped out of his own company because of sexual misconduct allegations. But Steve Wynn is really considered the forefather of modern day Las Vegas because his projects were so influential that they shaped the Las Vegas that we know today. So bear with me for a second while we talk about Steve Wynn a little bit. Steve Wynn was an outsider. He grew up in New York. He was born in the early 40s. His father owned a string of bingo parlors in Maryland. So he did have some exposure to gaming, if you will, but not a lot. Now, his father died when he was young. His father died at the age of 47 when Steve was a senior in college. And so rather than go to law school, Steve decided to come back home, run the bingo parlors, and take care of his family. He was successful enough at that when he decided to move to Las Vegas in 1967, he had a little bit of money, not a lot, but a lot of the money he did have, he invested in the Frontier Hotel and Casino when he came to Las Vegas in 1967. He worked as a keno manager and a credit manager on the casino floor, but that was short-lived because just 4 months after he bought his stake in the Frontier, Howard Hughes, of course, bought the Frontier. Howard Hughes was buying up a lot of properties in Las Vegas at the time, and so just like that, Steve was out of the casino business. From there, he focused his efforts on a liquor, beer, and wine distributorship in Las Vegas. He did that for about 3 years, and that's important because during that time, he made a lot of business contacts. The most important of those contacts was Perry Thomas, who was the president of the Bank of Las Vegas, which was the only bank in town willing to actually lend to the gaming industry. He became friends with Perry Thomas. Actually, he considered him to be more of a mentor than anything. And through that connection to Perry Thomas, he had the opportunity to buy a piece of land in Las Vegas that was extremely rare. Now, if you know of Caesar's Palace today, you know, of course, where it sits at the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Flamingo Road. But at this time, in the early 70s, there was a strip of land in between Caesar's Palace and Flamingo Road that Caesars didn't own. As a matter of fact, it was just 1,500 feet deep and 100 feet wide, so a very narrow strip of property. And Caesars actually leased that property from Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes was the owner of that piece of bare ground. Of course, Caesars wanted that piece of property, but Howard Hughes was buying, he wasn't selling, and so they were just leasing it from him for a parking lot. Well, Perry Thomas evidently convinced Howard Hughes or his people to sell that piece of ground to Steve Wynn. Now, Perry Thomas and the Bank of Las Vegas made Steve Wynn a loan to purchase this piece of property, and he bought it as much for speculation as anything else. But what he did do, knowing that Caesars wanted that piece of property, he started to put some pressure on Caesars by saying he was going to build on it. Steve Wynn actually said that he was going to build a casino on that little strip of property. Like I said, it's only 100 feet wide, so it would be difficult to do, but it could have been done. And it put enough pressure on Caesars that they decided they weren't going to risk that. They wanted to buy the property from Steve Wynn. So in only about 10 months' time, Steve Wynn bought a piece of property for $1.1 million and turned around and sold it for $2.25 million. His cut of that profit was about $600,000 after taxes. Now, wanting to be back in the casino business, Steve Wynn took that money and invested in the Golden Nugget downtown. And within a couple of years, Steve had acquired more shares of the Golden Nugget and became the primary shareholder. And just like that, by 1973, Steve Wynn was the youngest casino owner in Las Vegas. Gambling soon became legalized in Atlantic City, and everybody flocked to that market, and Steve Wynn was no different. Even though he had just recently added a hotel tower to the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, he went to Atlantic City and bought a piece of property, and from there he built from the ground up the Golden Nugget Atlantic City, and it was extremely profitable for quite some time.
The real magic of this place, the Golden Nugget, is the way the people that work here treat all the people that come here. Which way is the showroom? Thanks, Captain.
He did want to come back to Las Vegas at some point though, so in the late 80s, he sold the Golden Nugget Atlantic City and came back to Las Vegas looking for a new project. Now, I said the other piece you need to know and understand to completely understand the Mirage story is what the climate was like in Las Vegas at the time Steve Wynn conceived the Mirage. The 80s were not a great time in Las Vegas. Business was dwindling, tourism was dwindling, Atlantic City was taking a lot of East Coast gamblers away from Las Vegas, and the city did not exactly have a bright future in the early 80s. We had just come out of that mob era. The mob was finally out in Las Vegas, and the town didn't exactly have the best reputation. And by the time Steve Wynn conceived the Mirage, the connotation with Las Vegas was also that it was unsafe. In the early 80s, you had the MGM Grand fire, which was the most deadly hotel fire in U.S. history at the time. And then not long after that, you had the fire at the Las Vegas Hilton. And so people started to become kind of concerned about visiting Las Vegas. They had other options. They could gamble elsewhere in the country now. So casinos in Las Vegas at that time were becoming less and less extravagant, if you will. As a matter of fact, they were becoming more bare bones, almost reverting back to the old sawdust joint era. They were no frills type places focused on gambling. And Steve had an idea to build a resort that was a total destination. Steve had an idea to build a resort that was a total destination. He wanted it to have a casino, yes, but he wanted the hotel and the restaurants and the shopping and the entertainment to be as big a draw as the casino itself. It was an idea that really nobody had done until that point, and it was a risky proposition to say the least. Now, the magnitude of the project that he wanted to build was going to cost more than $500 million, and of course he didn't have that kind of cash. And as I mentioned, the business climate in Las Vegas was not great at the time, so the mob was gone, the money wasn't there for a big project like this. You and I didn't invest in casinos in that time. Wall Street didn't invest in casinos. So Steve Wynn was literally sitting on a pile of cash when he sold the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, but he still didn't have enough to build a $500 or $600 million mega resort, and he needed financing. So enter Michael Milken. Now, if you're not familiar with Michael Milken, he is a Wall Street guy, kind of is the father of the junk bond.
Jules, it's high yield bonds. Do I tell people you're in junk waitressing?
And he was able to issue bonds on behalf of the Golden Nugget Corporation to fund the construction of the Mirage. Now, a lot of people thought it was a pretty risky investment. The casino was going to have to generate a boatload of cash to pay this back. They issued the bonds, and in 1987 they got construction underway on the Mirage. Amazingly, it was built in just under 2 years. Steve Wynn originally set a date of December 26, 1989 to open, but he decided instead to open it in late November of 1989.
Nothing like it in Las Vegas.
Yeah, you're right, nothing.
Look up.
For what?
The pool. Fantasy becomes reality when the Mirage appears on the Las Vegas Strip.
Can I have a towel, Steve?
So the hotel opens on November 22nd, 1989, and as advertised, it's unlike anything anyone has ever seen before. It's one of the largest hotels in the world with 3,044 rooms. It has all sorts of things you don't expect to find in a Las Vegas casino. There's a habitat for lions and tigers inside because, well, Steve had convinced Siegfried and Roy to headline the showroom. That show wouldn't start until the beginning of the next year. There's a massive fish tank behind the front desk. There's a tropical theme throughout. There's a rainforest inside the dome, just inside the front doors. And of course, in case you missed it on your way in, there's a volcano outside that erupts numerous times nightly. At one point it erupted up to 4 times every hour. In addition to the Siegfried and Roy show inside the showroom, Steve also brought Cirque du Soleil to Las Vegas for the first time. He actually built a $5 million semi-permanent tent outside of the hotel, and that was the first ever show performed by Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas. Not long after the opening, they poured even more money into the resort, opening up the dolphin habitat. Several years later, that was followed by Siegfried and Roy's Secret Garden, where the big cats were housed. The pool complex was amazing. It featured a giant waterfall outside that still stands to this day. There were more restaurant options than anyone had ever seen before, and they were actually all centered around a single kitchen to help improve efficiency. Nobody anywhere in the entire world had ever done a hotel like this before. And in one respect it seems crazy, but on the other hand, it might just work. Well, the hotel turned out to be an absolute smashing success, and they retired those bonds in relatively short order. And that paved the way for Wall Street and big banks to decide, hey, Las Vegas is actually a viable investment. From there, Las Vegas was back in the public eye. America was in love with Las Vegas again, and it sparked a building boom that lasted at least 10 years. It's known as the Mirage era in Las Vegas because everybody started trying to copy what Steve Wynn had done with his new resort. So jump forward a couple more years, it's now 2000, the Bellagio is open. It's a big success, but the company is starting to struggle a little bit. Steve has perhaps stretched the company too thin. And his stock price has fallen to a point where the rest of the shareholders are starting to get a little bit upset. So along comes Kirk Kerkorian, who's also one of the founding fathers of modern day Las Vegas. He offers Steve a deal. Now at first Steve turns down the offer because he's just not ready to part with the Mirage, which is his baby. Also the Bellagio at this point, but eventually he has to give in to the pressure and agree to sell Mirage Resorts to Kirk Kerkorian's MGM Grand Incorporated, including all of its assets. The Mirage, the Bellagio, the Golden Nugget. From there, MGM Grand became MGM Mirage, a name which they held for a few years until it eventually became MGM Resorts, as it's known today, MGM Resorts International. So beginning in the year 2000 and lasting up until just this year, MGM Resorts owned and operated the Mirage, and did so quite successfully. I mean, I know it's not as popular as it once was, but nothing is, and it's been overshadowed by some of the newer resorts, but it remains a popular icon on the Las Vegas Strip, and by the late 2000 teens, it's starting to show its age. Now, I mean, we've stayed at the Mirage a couple of times, and let's face it, the rooms as they stand right now don't compete with the other hotel rooms on the Las Vegas Strip. That's just a matter of fact. You know, it was built in the 1980s, and you can see that in the design. The bathrooms are unbelievably small. They don't fit the standards of current luxury hotel rooms. They're just overall kind of small. The casino was last remodeled in 2008, so it's starting to show its age as well. And so by the late 2000 teens, MGM Resorts becomes faced with a situation where it's pour billions of dollars back into the property, or perhaps find another buyer.
Of MGM Resorts announcing it's selling the Mirage to Hard Rock International for $1 billion.
So right about a year ago, it was announced that MGM Resorts would be selling the Mirage to Hard Rock International. Now, selling the Mirage is a bit of a misnomer. MGM Resorts doesn't actually own the real estate anymore. They just leased it at this point, but they were operating the hotel. So what they sold to Hard Rock International was strictly the operating rights to the hotel. It was the right to actually run and operate a hotel on that site that they were leasing. And those rights went for $1.08 billion, which didn't even include the real estate, which is unbelievably high. And right away, people started saying the Mirage is gone, the Mirage is about to close. Of course, we know that turned out not to be true. Of course, if you read the articles at the beginning, you knew that wasn't true. Because MGM Resorts is actually letting Hard Rock International use the name The Mirage while they go through the transitions. It takes a little bit of time to get the details ironed out in a contract. So just last week, Hard Rock International was granted the final approval to close the deal and purchase the operating rights to the Mirage. And so as of right now, the hotel is no longer owned and operated by MGM Resorts. It's operated by Hard Rock International. But now that the deal is finalized, Hard Rock International has just started to reveal what their plans are for the building. And just like when Steve Wynn built the Mirage 3 decades ago, the plans are huge.
We will completely gut the casino. We will be able to see concrete on the ground and concrete above us. We will completely rebuild it, every single restaurant, every inch of all the public areas.
All right, so if you're watching this, you've undoubtedly heard that the Mirage is closing. Or you've heard they're tearing it down. Or you've heard it's already the Hard Rock. None of those things are actually true. The truth lies somewhere in the middle there. The volcano is going to go away, unfortunately. There's nothing that can be done about that. Hard Rock International plans to build a guitar-shaped tower 600 to 700 feet tall on that site. Now that tower is going to house all suites and be more than 600 rooms, bringing the total room count to the Mirage when they're all said and done to more than 3,600. Some of that ground where the volcano actually sits today is going to be part of the pool area. They've said there's going to be an infinity edge pool at the base of the guitar tower there that essentially looks straight down Las Vegas Boulevard. They plan to not only gut the existing casino, but add casino space and bring the total gaming space to more than 174,000 square feet, which is absolutely enormous even by Las Vegas standards. And then of course they've said that they will renovate every single hotel room. And when they say renovate, they don't just mean new carpet and new paint. They're going to tear it all the way down and totally reimagine those rooms. They won't even be recognizable whenever they're done. So is the Mirage closing? Well, they haven't exactly said, although they have said that it won't be closing anytime soon. So many rumors have been floating around out there about how the hotel's going to close down for renovations, and that probably is true, but it's not going to happen before at least the end of 2023, if not maybe a little bit longer. Hard Rock spokespeople have said that they will begin working on firm construction plans immediately, but that's expected to take at least half the year. At that point, they're going to be bidding out the construction, so we won't know an exact timeline until probably the end of 2023. Now, we do know that Hard Rock has renewed the Beatles Love Show to continue to perform at the Mirage until at least the end of 2023, so that gives us an idea of at least how long we think they'll continue to operate as is. So if you do want to get out to the Mirage and see it one last time, if you will, you do still have time. You don't have to rush right out there and see it in January. It's probably going to be there at least all year long. But based on the scope of the project that they're looking at here, I don't see any way they could possibly get all that done while keeping the hotel open. They've said the existing pool area will be leveled. Everything there, including the landscape, will be leveled and built from scratch. So I just don't see any way some of these construction projects can take place with a functioning casino and hotel on site. So when will it actually go by the name Hard Rock Hotel and Casino? Well, probably not until 2025 at the earliest. Yes, it's always sad to see one of these older casinos get torn down, and in this case the Mirage is not getting torn down. The building will remain, although it's going to look a lot different. But the volcano is getting torn down, and I know that's always kind of upsetting to lose an icon. But I look at it more as we're going to be gaining an unbelievable piece to the city skyline. It's going to change the skyline once again dramatically, and I for one think it's going to look pretty cool. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed this look at the Mirage Las Vegas, its history, what made it so influential in the first place, and where it goes from here. If you did like this video, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Also subscribe to the channel and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any of these videos in the future. But for now, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one because there's always more for us to show you on Show Me Vegas.